Have you ever imagined what happens when your heart betrays you in a way you never thought possible? When someone ends up betraying the person they love the most, today I am going to share a story that I carry with me with immense weight. A story of pain and betrayal involving me, my husband and my father-in-law. Yes, I was unfaithful, but not with a stranger or someone distant. I was unfaithful with my husband's father. Before continuing the story, I ask you for a second to give a like to the video. It doesn't bother you at all and it helps me a lot. Let's continue. How I got to this point, how one wrong decision can destroy the life of an entire family. Stay to the end, because what you are about to hear will challenge everything you believe about trust, love, and loyalty. The pain I feel in sharing this story is profound, but it is important for you to hear it. We were on our way to Diego's father's house, and to be honest, I was just hoping for a quiet getaway. One of those normal cottages where we spent the weekend with no worries. You know, those moments to disconnect from the hustle and bustle of the city and just relax. To me, it was just that, a familiar setting, a chance to bond, another step in our relationship that seemed so secure and predictable. But little did I know that everything was about to turn around. As soon as the car began to approach that old mansion on the outskirts of town, I felt something strange inside me. A kind of chill that I couldn't explain. It seemed that the air around us became thicker, as if an invisible presence began to invade my thoughts. The mansion of Mario, Diego's father, was hidden in the middle of a dense forest. As if it wanted to hide from the world, as if it were a forgotten piece of another era. And that old house seemed to carry something deep in its walls, something I could not decipher. Every step we took on the wooden floor creaked as if it wanted to tell us a secret. And the sound of the leaves outside, moving in the wind, only added to the sense of mystery. Inside, the house was cozy, but it had an energy that left me torn. The old paintings on the walls, the furniture that seemed to have lived other lives, and a fireplace that hadn't seen fire in a long time, all created an atmosphere that intrigued me, and at the same time left me uncomfortable. When Mario opened the door, the first impression was one of surprise. He was tall, with gray hair and weather marks on his face, much older than I expected. But what most caught my attention were his eyes. There was something there, something that went beyond simple hospitality. His eyes, full of secrets, seemed to want to unveil me, and for an instant, I felt that they were watching me longer than they should. That made me uneasy, but I decided to ignore it, looking away quickly. I didn't want to think too much about what that could mean. Diego, as always, was relaxed, joking, talking about work, not noticing anything unusual. But I couldn't concentrate on either the food or the conversation. My attention was beginning to drift to Murilo, to his calm voice, his gestures, that enigmatic tranquility. A casual glance from him was enough to shake my inner world. I caught him looking at me in a way that seemed to see beyond what I was showing, as if he knew something no one else knew. In that instant, I almost forgot where I was and who I was with. My heart raced, and I had to force myself to come back to reality. It was a feeling I couldn't control. Almost dangerous, but I couldn't understand why. After dinner, Diego suggested a walk in the garden, all animated, talking about his plans. But I couldn't concentrate. I noticed Mario at the window, watching us, or so it seemed. Was it my imagination? I began to wonder why I couldn't take my eyes off him, why that calmness attracted me so much. When we returned, Mario had retired to his room, which gave me some relief. For the rest of the night, I struggled to push those thoughts away, trying to convince myself that it was just fatigue and tension from being in a new place. I went to bed with a weight on my chest, not fully understanding what was happening, but knowing that Mario had touched something deep inside me, something I wasn't ready to admit yet. The morning at Murillo's began calmly, but inside me, a feeling was beginning to grow. I woke up with the feeling of having spent the night awake, with the image of dying him in my dreams, that inexplicable attraction that I was desperately trying to push away from my thoughts. I looked at Diego, who was already in the kitchen preparing breakfast. Everything seemed normal, the aroma of coffee, the sound of the toaster on, the soft light coming through the antique curtains. But inside me, anxiety was growing. Mario was not in the kitchen, which brought me relief, although I knew it would be temporary. He was nearby, and every corner of the house seemed to whisper his presence. I sat down at the table next to Diego, who smiled at me with his usual tenderness. His voice was comforting, familiar, but my mind was far away. He talked about the day he was planning, a walk to the river, a hike in the woods. Everything seemed perfect, but I was somewhere else. "You didn't sleep well," he asked as he poured me coffee. His voice made me shudder and I nodded, forcing a smile. Of course I couldn't tell him the truth. How could I? There was no point in confessing that I woke up feeling like I was being watched, or that the emotions consuming me were out of control. As if my thoughts had called to him, Mario appeared in the kitchen like a silent shadow. He walked through the door silently, with calm and confident movements. His gaze fixed on me for an instant, making me shudder inside. I looked away quickly, hoping Diego hadn't noticed. "Good morning," Mario said, his voice soft, calm. I could only respond. Everything inside me was screaming to get out of there, to find an excuse not to be near him, but my feet were glued to the ground. His presence, his smell, his quiet confidence, everything attracted me like a magnet, despite knowing how absurd it seemed. "Laura, you're tense," Diego commented when we were ready to go for a walk. "You are fine." "Yes, I just didn't sleep well," I answered, hoping he wouldn't insist. We walked along the path that led to the forest. Diego went ahead, talking excitedly, while I tried to concentrate on the sounds of the forest, on the smell of pine trees. "Mario will join us later," Diego said suddenly. The news brought me a strange relief. I wanted to be away from him, but I knew it would be temporary. "What do you think of my father?" Diego asked, surprising me. My heart skipped a beat. "It's impressive," was all I could say. "Yes, it's special," Diego said, smiling, not noticing my uneasiness. We continued walking, but my mind was far away, trying to understand how one night and one look had changed everything. When we returned home, Mario was sitting on the porch. He looked up and our eyes met again. In that instant, I realized that I could no longer ignore what was happening. It has been several days since we returned to the city, but the hectic pace of city life could not erase the memories of that weekend. Murillo, his house, his penetrating gaze, all of it remained etched in my mind. I tried hard to get back to the daily routine, but nothing seemed to work. Diego, work, friends, everything seemed pale and distant compared to the intense emotions of those days. Desperate to distract myself, I decided to take a walk, never imagining that it would change my life forever. I entered a small bookstore that had always caught my attention. A cozy place full of stories. The atmosphere was quiet, with the soft sound of pages being turned and the aroma of coffee mingling with the smell of books. I browsed the shelves, touching them covered, trying to find something to take my mind off the memories of Mario. Among the antique volumes, a leather-bound diary caught my eye. I flipped through the pages and found handwritten accounts, stories of passion and betrayal that seemed to reflect my own emotional turmoil. As I read, the words in the journal seemed to describe exactly what I was feeling. A forbidden attraction, a desire that led to unexpected consequences. The similarities to my situation were disturbing. I spent hours immersed in the journal, and upon closing it, I experienced a slight relief, although the unease continued to disturb me deeply. As I left the bookstore, I realized that I needed to face what was happening, to find a solution, at least to understand what was really going on. Days passed, but the uneasy feeling would not leave me. One night, as I was going to bed, I received an unexpected message. It was from Mario. "Laura, I would like to talk to you in private. We need to talk." My heart skipped a beat. The text was simple, but the impact was profound. Something in me hesitated, but the need to understand what was happening spoke louder. I responded briefly. "Sure, we can meet." The next day, I returned to the old mansion with a mixture of fear and anticipation. Mario greeted me at the entrance with his usual penetrating gaze. Without saying a word, he led me to his room, a place shrouded in art and mystery. Laura began softly. "I know things between us have been complicated. I want you to know that I have no intention of hurting you." The sincerity was evident, but there was something else in his words. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, feeling my voice tremble slightly. He hesitated for a moment, as if searching for the right words. "I felt a connection with you too, it wasn't planned, but sometimes emotions are stronger than we can control." His words were a shock, but they also confirmed what I already felt. He continued, "I want to be honest with you. What I feel for you is genuine, but it is also complex. I need to know if you are willing to explore this or if you would prefer everything to stay as it is." I froze, not knowing how to respond. My emotions were in disarray, and the need to understand what was happening was almost painful. Mario was waiting for an answer, his eyes fixed on me, offering me a choice. The decision was in my hands, but the fear of the consequences was overwhelming. Uncertainty hovered over me. Deciding between exploring the relationship with Mario or cutting all ties was tempting, but at the same time terrifying. I realized I needed more time to think. The next day, Murillo's words were still echoing in my head. The pages of that old diary also came back to my mind, as if everything was connected. My mind oscillated between following my feelings or maintaining the stability of my life. The dilemma was strong: how to deal with desire and risk at the same time. I remembered the diary and its words about forbidden passions. The similarities to my situation were disturbing, but served as a warning. The desire to explore my feelings for Mario was strong, almost irresistible. Finally, after days of reflection, I decided I needed to clear everything up with Mario. I made an appointment at a quiet cafe, ideal for a frank conversation. When we met, the tension was palpable. Mario seemed nervous, his restless eyes reflecting the same uncertainty I felt. "Laura," he began, "I've thought a lot about us. I want to be clear: if we go ahead, we need to be prepared to face the consequences." His words were sincere, but they further complicated my decision. Mario replied, "I need clarity. I cannot ignore the impact of my choices, and I need to consider what this means for everyone around me." We both expressed our doubts, hopes, and fears. What became clear to me was that the decision was not just about choosing a path, but about finding a balance between my desires and my responsibilities. I decided to focus on resolving my own internal issues and give time to time. Our conversation ended with a feeling of mutual understanding. We left the meeting knowing that we would need time and space to understand what we really wanted. In the days that followed, Mario and I maintained a respectful distance, allowing time to heal and bring new perspectives. I learned that facing the truth, even when it is painful, is essential to building a clearer and truer future. And so the story came to an end, but the lessons and emotions remained as a reminder of the impact of the choices we make and the importance of following one's path with courage and sincerity.